Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sportscaster Dan podcast. I am Dan Lavallo. I want to talk a little bit about the wild card races in Major League Baseball. This is what baseball intended when they introduced the wild card concept many years ago, to have exciting finishes down the stretch. And that's what we have. The division races may be settled, but the wild card races are wild. Let's take a look, first of all, at the American League, where right now you have three teams from the American League's Eastern Division: the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, and the Toronto Blue Jays battling it out for two wild card spots. You can't count out the Oakland Athletics yet, or for that matter, the Seattle Mariners. There's 2 weeks to go in the season, and it's really going to be exciting. Now, some might say this is playing gimmicks with the standings, this is playing gimmicks with baseball, and, there may be something to that, but it's the world in which we live as far as sports is concerned, with playoffs and wild card teams, all for mostly televised purposes. Television wants as many of the games as possible to mean something. So that's why you're seeing all of this wild card tiers and more talk of even more playoff teams in baseball. This is what it's all about, and we might as well enjoy it. And we talk about the American League. Look at the National League, what's going on. Looked as if the San Diego Padres about a month ago were a lock to be going to the wild card game against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now they're struggling, and it's the St. Louis Cardinals who, if the season were to end right now, would go up against the Dodgers in a one-game playoff. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the Dodgers obviously have clinched a playoff spot, and they could still win the National League Western Division. It might be the Giants playing in that wild card game, the one-and-done game. But you've got the Cardinals currently in the hunt. As a matter of fact, as I said, if the season were to end right now, they'd be in that wild card game. Can't count out the Cincinnati Reds yet. You certainly can't count out the San Diego Padres, even though they probably have the toughest schedule among those three teams. And then you've got the National League East race with the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies still battling it out. The Phillies would probably also tell you they're in the wild card chase. The Mets, I would say I don't think so. At this recording of the podcast, they are 3 games under 500. It would really take a miracle for the Mets to make it, but that's why they play the games. Now, some might argue you've got the Los Angeles Dodgers with the second best record in all of baseball, and they could be out of postseason play if they lose the one-and-done game in the National League wild card game. Well, that's the way it goes. I think you're going to see baseball change this down the road, though. I think if baseball had its way, it would actually add more wild card teams or more playoff teams, maybe even do away with the wild card concept, so to speak. Just add more playoff teams, go to a seeding position, giving the edge to the divisional winners, maybe even give a first-round bye to the teams with the best records in the American League and the National League, and then start off with a best of 3. I think it's something maybe baseball ought to look at. I also think baseball might want to consider reducing the number of regular season games. I know that makes people nervous, but you cut down the number of regular season games, end the season by the middle of September, get right into the playoffs, and wrap up the whole season by the middle of October. People are starting to focus on football. As it is right now, if the World Series goes to 7 games this year, it could end, or it would end, in early November. And I think baseball has to change that. You don't want a situation where you're in a cold weather climate early November and you're playing baseball games, the ultimate baseball game, 7th game of the World Series, in 30-degree temperatures. So hopefully baseball will adjust this issue. But I would say over the last 2 weeks of the season, enjoy the wild card races in both the American League and the National League. This is what baseball intended all along. And by the way, thanks for watching the podcast and also listening to the podcast. I'm putting this up on my YouTube channel, my Sportscaster Dan YouTube channel. But also, thanks for subscribing to my Sportscaster Dan newsletter. And you can follow the podcast. We are in the Apple Podcast Directory, and all of the major podcast directories. However you listen to your podcasts, please follow the Sportscaster Dan podcast. Thanks. I'm Dan Lovallo.